The Great Lakes include Superior, Michigan, Huron, Erie, and Ontario. It's the world's largest freshwater system, making up 20% of the world's fresh surface water, even visible from space. More than 35 million people drink from them, thousands of species thrive in their habitats, and they are vital to industry and transportation in the Great Lakes region. After more than a century of use and abuse, scientists realized the lakes were in trouble. Industrial, farm, and city runoff and habitat destruction threaten their environmental, recreational, and economic value. In the 1970s, the U.S. and Canada got together to create the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement to protect and restore the 5 Great Lakes. In 1987, the agreement identified 43 Great Lakes, rivers, and harbors with the most severe problems. We call them Areas of Concern, or AOCs. Once plagued with fish tumors, the lower Black River in Lorain County, Ohio, was designated as an AOC. In these AOCs, scientists identified 14 key issues, including toxins in fish and wildlife that affect their health and make them dangerous to eat, damaged habitat, and toxic sediment that prevents dredging, limiting recreation and shipping. We call these problems beneficial use impairments, or BUIs. The U.S. and Canada began addressing these problems right away, but funding was limited and progress was slow. That changed in 2010 with the Federal Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. The GLRI has provided over $2.2 billion for Great Lakes projects, including more than $700 million for AOC restoration. Thanks to funding from the U.S. EPA, GLRI, and state EPAs, each AOC has its own group of dedicated volunteers ensuring the proper rehabilitation of the respective watershed, such as what was formerly known as the Black River Remedial Action Plan. The Black River Advisory Committee is comprised of government representatives, nonprofits, small businesses, concerned citizens, and area stakeholders, which is facilitated by the local YACs. Each AOC has its own plan for rehabilitation and to address the BUIs, but cleaning up contamination is always an important first step. We carefully locate, remove, enclose, or treat contaminated sediment. Once the AOC's cleanup is complete, we can turn our attention to habitat restoration, which brings back environmental, recreational, and economic value. But how much is enough? How do we know when we're done? Scientists gather data throughout the cleanup and restoration work to monitor progress. State environmental agencies, U.S. EPA, and local stakeholders evaluate the data. If the improvement is acceptable, BUIs are removed one by one from the list of the AOC's problems. The Black River has 6 remaining BUIs. The removal of the degradation of aesthetics BUI in January of 2021 marks the 100th beneficial use impairment that the EPA has removed from a U.S. area of concern. Once all BUIs are removed, we delist the AOC. But now what? An area may be brought up to snuff, but still not be all that it can be. So now the community can continue to shape and enhance nature's design through funds from private, local, state, and federal partners. Boat and kayak launches, boardwalks, parks, and trails can add even more value to these recovering AOCs. Working together, we can make these former areas of concern areas to be proud of. So jump in and get involved. Visit this website to learn more about the Black River AOC and how you can get involved.
Schaefer, and I am the director for Main Street Lorain, our city's downtown development organization here. And I'd like to welcome you. Thank you all for joining us here today at our Black River Summit, celebrating our management actions complete. Finally, right after 2 years of trying to have this summit and canceling and rescheduling and canceling. So thank you all for being here today.
And thank you all for being here today. It's a great day in Lorain, Ohio, but we're even going to have better days ahead of us as we continue to improve Lake Erie and the Black River and the reclamation that's been taking place through the efforts of the City of Lorain Engineering Department, the Ohio EPA, the Corps of Engineers, and the United States EPA. We've been very, very blessed in our community. Next slide. So This kind of shows our industrial past, and this was what used to be happening on the Black River, and that was that we were a shipbuilding industrial community. We had U.S. Steel, we had Ford Motor Company, and we built 1,000-foot Lake Erie freighters. But we also built naval ships here in Lorain. In the Second World War, we actually built 43 ships for the Navy, which were minesweepers. So they were able to build those ships and get those through the seaway and out there to protect our country and help us win the Second World War. And as you probably know, we're in the process of trying to secure some naval contracts here in the city of Lorain and get these submarines out of dry dock and get them repaired and get them to do what they're supposed to do, which was to protect our country and protect the world, actually. And we have a problem because these ships that sit in dry dock just don't sit there not serving us, but we're also losing sailors. It was reported to me last week that we lost 12 sailors because of suicide, because they're sitting in these ships in dry dock. They're making the sailors stay on these ships, and they're staying for an extended period of time. So hopefully, what used to be our industrial past is going to return to an industrial future. Next slide. There's also some exciting things happening in the city of Lorain today. And this is probably a picture that was taken from the roof of the Ariel Hotel, I would think, because I don't know if you've ever been over here on the roof of the hotel, but these are the most spectacular sunsets that you can see not only in the state of Ohio, but in the world. And I know that Radika is having events here on Friday nights where you can come over here and have cocktails and watch a sunset, and on Saturday evenings you can come here and have dinner. And if you haven't done that, you need to experience a sunset here at the Ariel Hotel. Again, it's something that you would not want to miss. Another thing that's happening on the Black River, besides Bartlett Maritime trying to get a naval operation here in Lorain, is the Felbo family. And the Felbo family have an idea for a $70 million project on the Black River, where they want to do an intermodal port, where not only will we be serving ports throughout the United States, along with Great Lakes, but this would also be an international port. And we've already met with Sherrod Brown, we've met with Marcy Capter, and we're seeking funding to get this particular project funded. The Felbo family is very, very dedicated in trying to get this project done. They've met with Skylift, a company that produces equipment in the city of Lorain, who would like to open up their business to Canada. And this would be a free port here in the city of Lorain. And so we're hoping that that funding comes through so that we can get an international port here in the city of Lorain. Next slide. As you all know, we've spent over 10 years and over $30 million in doing a restoration along the Black River. I've had the chance to go over to the properties of U.S. Steel and Republic Steel, and quite frankly, they're a mess. But the restoration project that has been done along the Black River, again through the help of engineering, consultants that we use, the Ohio EPA, United States EPA, Corps of Engineers, they have transformed that area of the Black River into something that's special. The wildlife is coming back, the fish life is coming back, and recreation is coming back along the Black River. It's not a river that is polluted. It is a river that is full of activity, and it is full of life. And it is part of the rebirth and renaissance of the city of Lorain. Next slide. By the way, I didn't mention, we also got a $15 million grant to dredge the Black River. And that's necessary. If you're going to have ships coming in and out of the Black River, you need to make sure that it's dredged properly. So $15 million from the government to help continue with the dredging of the Black River. And the dredging materials don't just get taken out of the river, they're actually reused. And so a useful purpose helps to reuse the dredged materials to do other positive things in our community. And we have a little bit more to do along the Black River to complete the restoration. It's almost like 95, 98% completed, but there's a little bit more to do, and we've got the funding to be able to do that. And we're going to complete this project, and I know when the director of the EPA was here, and Marcy Kapler was here, and we did a tour of the facility. They just couldn't believe it. They could not believe what they saw along the Black River and the type of activity that's going on there with wildlife and also sports people with their boats and so forth. You know, if you look out this window, you're going to see what used to be a pellet terminal. And it's kind of a long stretch of land. And then there's two piers out here. They're called the finger piers. And we just received $4 million from the government to clean up this brownfield, which is called the pellet terminal. And we're going to use that money to clean it up and then hopefully do some green space and also some residential and commercial development in that area to further the progress. We want to not only have Broadway as a mainstay of the city of Lorain, but we also want to extend it down to Lake Erie so that everyone in the city of Lorain can enjoy the benefits of our great lake. Next slide. And we also are talking about developing those two finger piers that are right after that pellet terminal. And so our engineering department with other developers have developed a plan to have those finger piers developed. So what we actually plan on doing is running a trolley up and down Broadway, bringing people down to those finger piers, have a turnaround here, have a bandstand, walking trails, parking, fishing, and Marcy Kapler has put in for a $4 million earmark for that project. Last year it didn't make it through the markup, but we're hoping that this year it does make it through the markup. Marcy Kapler has promised me that she's not going to forget about Lorain, Ohio, and we should never, ever forget about her. Next slide. So I want to thank everyone for being here today, especially the Ohio EPA, United States EPA, the Great Lakes Restoration Project, and also the Black River Area of Concern. All of you that are working on making Lorain, the Black River, and Lake Erie a better place. I know that every week I do a hidden treasure in the city of Lorain. I try to focus on businesses and functions that are going on in the city of Lorain just to let people know that there's a lot happening. And I've been doing those videos now since COVID started for 2 years. So it's got to be over 100 videos. And I haven't run out of businesses and places that are treasures in the city of Lorain. And I wish I could actually just go into the middle of the Black River and do a video about that treasure, because I think it is a hidden treasure.
Make that happen. Yeah.
We'll make it happen. Well, we'll get it done, and I'll do one of my videos from a boat on the Black River. But it's just people need to be reminded that things that you look at and see every day don't just happen. That it takes people like all of you to make it happen, and that you are all treasures. And I want to thank you again for being here, and I want to thank all of you for all the good work that you do for our city and to make us all Lorain proud. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Bradley. Next we're going to hear from a few speakers chatting through some of that progress that Mayor Bradley mentioned. You are all lucky enough that I am the first speaker that is going to start us out. So as I mentioned, I'm the director for Main Street Lorain, our downtown development organization. We're a fairly new organization in the grand scheme of things. We were founded in 2019 with a small group of volunteers who came together and saw the progress that was happening, right? We saw the investment that Radika was making in this project. We saw the thousands of people that were coming to Black River Landing, where there's probably about 1,000 or 2,000 people down there now for a graduation currently, every Friday night in our summer months for Rockin' on the River concert series, right? We saw the new businesses opening on Broadway, and our original board of directors came together and said, what can we do as community leaders to really focus those efforts, to assist in development, to connect these new businesses to resources, to connect them to their city government and their county government, to make sure that they are thriving and operating full throttle. And so we came together, discussed a number of different options as to what direction we could move in, and we found the Main Street model of economic development. And I don't know this for a fact, but I say it quite often. I believe Lorain County is home to more Main Street organizations than any other county in the state of Ohio. I think we're up to 6 Main Street organizations in Lorain County. Lorain, Vermilion, Amherst, Wellington, Oberlin, and now Grafton, as just a couple weeks ago, joined that. The reason I chose it is because we saw a history of success, right, dating back to the 1980s across the United States. Their models for economic transformation inspired us and led us to believe that they were the best option to move forward with. So through our board of directors and through our 4 volunteer committees, including the organization committee, which focuses on sustainability and growth within our organization, our business committee, which focuses on marketing, events, our economic vitality committee, and our design committee, which focuses on built environment and historic architecture. We do all of our economic transformation work through those 4 committees, involving various members of our community and our small business community as well. And so what started out as a small group of volunteers meeting at a cocktail bar in 2019 has now grown to an organization that has provided over $24,000 worth of volunteer hours to the city of Lorain last year alone. And we are on pace to surpass that this year. We've grown to an organization that is regularly doing programming and events throughout downtown Lorain. Our first Friday block party series has been a huge success. We just had our first one of this year last week, where we bring out vendors, artists, musicians, all to downtown Lorain and invite the community really to experience our downtown either for the first time or for the first time in a long time. I've had a number of conversations with folks that have come out to those events who live 5-10 minutes from here, who haven't visited our downtown in years. Because for quite some time there was not a lot to visit. But now I tell people there are over 50 small businesses just on our Broadway district alone. There's a dozen plus places that you can grab lunch, grab a cup of coffee, grab a cocktail, sit around with friends, enjoy the night. As Mayor Bradley said, we have an amazing gem that we are in right here. And in all summer long, you can grab dinner and a cocktail on the roof, watching the sunset, listening to live music, listening to Rockin' on the River for $25, $30 for a dinner and drinks, right? I mean, that is an amazing opportunity, and it's because because we sit on the Black River, we sit on Lake Erie, right? That is a huge part of it. That is a huge draw. The economic impact that these two natural resources have on our environment and the growth of our downtown has been huge for the city of Lorain. And so we're still chipping away. We have the Cleveland Shakespeare Festival coming to the city of Lorain twice this summer. July 9th, there's going to be a free performance of Hamlet right there at Black River Landing. Grab your picnic basket, grab your blanket, grab your lawn chairs, and come out and enjoy a night. Professional actors from Cleveland coming and performing for the community. And then July 31st, we're going to have a performance of Learned Ladies, again, completely free for the community, which is very exciting. We have our monthly cleanups that we are hosting now in downtown Lorain. Our first Friday events, like I mentioned, Small Business Saturday, a number of things that we're doing really to just engage the community, right? That's what it is all about. It is making sure that the citizens of Lorain are enjoying their downtown, that they're feeling welcome, safe, that they're enjoying themselves in their downtown neighborhood, and for all the visitors, right, that we are inviting and continuously seeing in our city to make sure that they're having a great time too. So that's how we're operating. Some recent news that I'm excited to share. We just had a recent the city just had a recent study and market analysis done through the Cleveland State University Maxine Goodman within graduate program on urban affairs, and that project culminated. One of the points that they made was their belief that Main Street Lorain was going to be the entity moving forward with development in downtown Lorain in the years to come, which is just a huge accomplishment to our volunteers that in such a short amount of time, our volunteers and our committees can make, such a positive impact and work with the small business community to make that positive impact. So that was one thing that was extremely exciting. We are also moving forward with Heritage Ohio and Main Street America to become a fully accredited Main Street organization by the end of this summer, which is a huge next step for our organization, and is just, again, a testament to our volunteers' work, our efforts to not only revitalize downtown Lorain and Broadway, but the entire neighborhood as a whole. So there's a lot of exciting things going on in downtown Lorain. And if this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for experiencing it. We hope it's not your last time. Like I said, there are amazing places to grab a cocktail, dinner, and to stay late, right? So that is what's going on with Main Street Lorain. None of that could be possible without the help of volunteer organizations like this and the work that we do here at the Black River AOC as well. So I just want to say thank you to Rob and staff and all the volunteers that have worked tirelessly on restoring the Black River and restoring our entire downtown neighborhood, because those two things go hand in hand, right? The health of the Black River absolutely goes hand in hand with economic success that we have here in downtown Lorain. So next, I'm going to introduce somebody that I've mentioned already, Miss Radhika Reddy from the Ariel on Broadway Hotel. Radhika has over 35 years of experience in the areas of economic development, including 25 years in the United States, 10 years in India as an international banker. Ms. Reddy is the founder of the Ariel Ventures LLC, Ariel International Center, Ariel Economic Development Fund, the Ariel Distribution Center, and Ariel Pearl Center LLC, and the Ariel on Broadway Hotel, which are all 100% women and minority-owned businesses. Ms. Reddy and her partners provide financial and business advisory services to over $2 billion in public-private finance transactions nationally, utilizing a variety of federal, state, and local tax credits and incentives to do so. Ms. Reddy is also a published author and has presented at various national and international conferences in the area of international business and taxes and federal tax credits. She has her MBA in finance and MIS from Case Western Reserve University and a master's in accounting and taxation from Cleveland State University. She enjoys traveling, music, philosophy, politics, and of course, economic and community development. And one thing that I found when creating all of this for today was that Joy Roldan, who's the director of Cleveland Global, said that Radhika is one of the smartest, hardworking, resourceful, and visionary women that she knows, and we couldn't agree more here in Lorain. So, without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic over to Miss Radhika Reddy.
Thank you for that kind introduction, and welcome everybody. I'm so glad to have you all here and enjoy this. As he mentioned, we do urban finance in low-income communities, putting together public-private finance to make difficult projects like this happen. My understanding, this building was going to be demolished. In 15 years, not a single hotel in Lorain, the 10th largest city in the state of Ohio. And, that's amazing that, such a beautiful gem, this was going to happen. But thanks to the city of Lorain and the Port Authority, the port had come down to a wedding at my Cleveland Area International Center, which is a 4-story building on the Lake Erie, and the west side has a beautiful view of downtown Cleveland. He said, "Oh my gosh, we have a building for you." So he and the mayor and the city of Lorain helped create a real red carpet welcome. And I'm like, I want to retire. I don't want to do any more development. There's a lot of headache and problems, roofing issues, this, that. But they convinced me. And Lorain, the welcome we got was just phenomenal. They helped us get real estate abatement, which was very critical because you can't cash flow these projects without that. We did work with our expertise in bringing federal historic tax credits, state historic tax credits. Lorain had never received a state historic tax credit. We were the first one. So the previous developer for 14, 15 years had been trying. Their project cost was $14 million. What we did was we used our expertise and hard work to cut down that cost to $10 million, $9 to $10 million. And of course, it took a lot of hard work because I had to become general contractor and construction manager, and I saved $1.5 million, plus the federal and state credits and new markets, energy financing, TIP financing, all that helped us knock down another $3-4 million to bring down the project to about $10 million. So that creative financing helped make this project happen. And the other beautiful thing, one of the reasons I agreed to come here was because of the Black River. When I came here, I went to the roof, I saw the Black River, I saw all the concerts that were happening, seeing the view of the lake. I felt we could do something. This area had 13 bedrooms. No one had access to see this. So I tore them down, and the event center was in the basement where the bar is now. They had no windows. I'm like, so much beauty here, how do we expose? We do have 2 other event centers, so I felt, let's open this up. We took out 13 bedrooms and made this a public space so everyone could enjoy seeing the Black River and the lake. It was just stunning, just the view, and I felt, let's build it and they'll come. So it was a big risk because at that time no one was doing anything in Lorain. But since we announced construction, 18 new businesses opened up. And as Mac mentioned, we also set up a venture capital fund called Aerial Economic Development. We are a certified CDFI. There's no CDC, there's no CDFIs here. But I do have access to a lot from the state and from Cleveland and all that are willing to invest in Lorain and create funds. So I myself was able to fund some of my tenants, like Doodly's and Cakes by Lakes, through my own CDFI to help create tenants, in the building who are super successful now. And then even the city is now got the historic designation for Broadway, created the Broadway Historic District thanks to Main Street, the city, and Historic Society. It's just phenomenal, everyone working together. And about 4 or 5 years ago, when I started, no one wanted to come to Lorain. I asked Kate first, can you come here? No, why Lorain, we can't. Now, everyone's talking about Lorain. They're like waiting in line to come to Lorain. So that is the transformation because of the natural beauty of the river and the lakefront. So, and then definitely the dynamism of the city, the port, Main Street, historical society, everyone. And that's the beauty, it's a smaller city. Even the county, John, they've all been super helpful, bending over backwards, like what can we do to help? And I've not seen that in Cleveland, because that's a much bigger city, you know. But here, everyone's working together, it's just been phenomenal. And every year there's so much progress. It's too bad we lost those 2 years to COVID. I mean, we opened and in 1 week we had to shut down due to COVID. So yes, it's been a struggle, but we've not given up hope. Fortunately, we are diversified and do have a very strong accounting business that keeps us afloat too. Plus, the mayor has been very kind and helped us and continues to help us to keep us, you know, positive and motivated. And we are very excited of what's to come. Even we had the banks said, oh, all hotels are bad, and they were trying to put us in the bad category, and they had an appraisal done, and they came and heard what all is happening in Lorain, and they gave us full valuation, because you know, even though the banks were trying to say, oh, all hotels are done bad, and they were trying to devalue us, but the appraiser came back, saw what was happening, and said, wow, even though you all had bad 2 years, the future is fantastic, see what you all are doing. We were creative and started that, you know, in COVID, we started the Rooftop Sunset series, as you said, to get revenue. Some revenue coming. It's still, you know, people are still not traveling and coming out so much. But honestly, it's these natural resources that are the beauty and the draw. And as the mayor's saying, they're connecting that, you know, the boardwalk is definitely the next step. Mayor, speaking to your engineering department and the county, if we can connect the Black River landing to walk under the bridge all the way to the boardwalk in the river, because so many thousands come here. So it's beautiful to walk under the bridge all the way versus having to cross the highway if the boardwalk ends there. So talking to the county also to see if they can give us permission to use that little land they own under the river, under the bridge, because it would be beautiful to have a nice 2-mile walk for people who are coming here, for people out of town who are coming to stay at our hotel. So this kind of amenities, to bring back the jet ski machines and you know, they all had to shut down because of the COVID, but hopefully they come back. And some boat rides into the lake, all the way, Jet Express and all. So much going on. We are excited. We tell all our guests how wonderful, such beautiful things happening in Lorain. Oh, the other thing is we got certified as the first, in Northern Ohio, as the only historic hotels of America, which gives us a national platform. They're It's run by the National Historic Preservation. They have international historic hotels and American historic hotels. We're the only one in North Ohio. The rest, I think, two in Cincinnati, one in Columbus. But Lorain is now on the landmark for them. So when they encourage tourism for historic hotels across the country, Lorain is on the map. So very excited. We just got that designation in February. And then the county started the convention group with Gary, who's phenomenal. He's been so helpful. The restarting the Convention Visitors Bureau. So we had a meeting of all the people trying to encourage tourism with Lorain as a stop. It's beautiful. For 1 week, you can come and do phenomenal things. So this water activities, we've got to bring back some more boats and rivers and, you know, maybe parasailing and stuff like that for people to come and have things to do. And metro parks with the beautiful lakeside things. So all this are very exciting, and it's just, you know, the mayor and the port are very entrepreneurial. That helps a lot. The city is not like government. It's very much friendly business, very business friendly. That's helped us a lot, and we try to tell all our real estate groups, come here. I'm on the board of many real estate groups, so we're going to start that conferences and all to open up real estate development in Lorain. And I've also got 4 or 5 CDFIs, the community development entities, who really want to focus on Lorain, like ECDI and you know, Finance Fund that use the CDFI, that banks don't do loans for startups, they will come and invest. They do loans where the banks won't do. That's a CDFI, and the federal government supports that. So those kind of activities are happening, and thank you all for the support. And I do hope we all work together to continue to make this progress in the way.
before we move on to the federal and regional AOC progress and update portion, my mistake was skipping over the Port Authority. So I'm going to introduce now Yvonne Smith from the Lorain Port and Finance Authority. They serve as the development arm for the city of Lorain and aim to develop an environmentally conducive development projects throughout the city of Lorain, specifically along our waterfront through incentives and financing programs. Since 2010, the Lorain Port and Finance Authority has financed over $19 million in projects here in the city of Lorain. They are housed right next to us at Black River Landing and are largely responsible for working with Radika and the city to create this project and to bring Rockin' on the River to the city of Lorain, which brings 5,000 to 7,000 people every Friday, Saturday night throughout the summer for live music here on our riverfront. So without further ado, I turn it over to Yvonne Smith.
Thank you, Max. Well, good morning, everybody. Happy to talk about fun stuff. We were here in Lorain, and I'll try to skip through some of the stuff fast because the mayor's already addressed it, Edik and everybody. But we have a lot of before and after pictures, and pictures speak 1,000 words. We all know our history and the port's involvement in the transformation in that. The history, of course, as the mayor's already alluded to, is we had steel mills, Ford Motor Company, American Shipbuilders, and the pellet terminal. And setting the stage, you can see the old pictures here. I love these old pictures because these were the railways. And I've heard stories, people come in our office and they say the rail cars, they would actually have this contraption. It would pick them up, dump them out, and put them on another rail, and they would roll right back down through there. And so they said as kids, they used to sit and watch that, and that was a really cool thing. But in 1989, we started acquiring property, the Port Authority, and then LTV Steel donated the property to us, and then we started the environmental work, and then we did a new master plan in 1997 to include the intramodal, which is that whole site that you see down there. We actually have a train station, and we have boats that come in right there, and we envision someday to have bus, trolley, you name it, and we work together with everybody to do whatever we can to facilitate these actions. Here is before we took it, and this is Black River Landing right there, and then this is the after picture that we did, and you can see it's a huge, huge difference. They already alluded to all of the monies that we were able to help facilitate to bring in to get restoration done with NOACA through ODOT. We had $3.5 million, Jared Brown $3.45 million. Local businesses actually donated a walkway on Black River Landing. And then we had the port rebuilt the stage, as you can see right there. Betty Sutton had federal earmarks for the jet, and I'll show you. There's a here. Here's where the jet comes and other boats come on that site over by the river. The county gave us $50,000 for the big pavilion down there, and then the other restoration work and stuff started. This is a before picture, and this is after. This is the railway bridge further down the river. Here's the railroad bridge again. You can see the transformation that really occurred here in Lorain, and that's really, everybody has to pitch in to get these items done, from the city to the county to, EPA, you name it, everybody does. Here's the finger piers. I know the mayor mentioned the finger piers. This is what it looked like before, and this is what it looks like now, and we're getting ready to do some more on that, right, Mayor?
Right.
This is a really cool one I like. It's a drone shot with the bridge up, and it shows our site, how nice and green it is. Here's the dock with the jet. Here's a smaller dock, and it's a really nice shot of the whole city actually, but it showcases our site. Here's just another angle of that. This is my favorite picture in the world. You can see this beautiful sunset. We've got a concert going on. We've got the lights, the different colors. It's, I just love this shot. But that's that site right there when we're doing a concert, Rocking on the River. I just love this one. This is when Roverfest was here. Roverfest decided up here was too small, they needed to go to the southern end, so they set their own stage up. And as you can see, that place is packed. This is summer market. We also have summer market that now comes to our site. This is a great event. And as you can also, this is a good one that shows the walking trails all over Black River Landing too. But that's just another event. And we do the overflow parking on the southern end so we don't crowd up downtown's parking so much. This is one of our shuttle boats. We have two. And a couple of years ago, we started a free service during Rockin' on the River and Summer Market and other special events. We do a shuttle from our dock to the shipyards, back to our dock, and then to Oasis and back to our dock throughout that evening. So it's a free service. You can go from one to the other. And it's really nice to help facilitate people getting around, going to dinner, going back to the concert. It's just a really cool thing. Plus, we do river tours, like we work with the Lighthouse Group. We have a beautiful lighthouse you can see out here. They do tours, and then we do the boats back and forth for them. So if you haven't done that, that's a really nice tour. We also do river tours. We do history tours. And it's a really nice thing. It's not that expensive. It's a really fun thing to do here on our river. This, we had Cabela's. We came out and we did the National Walleye Festival or fish event. And as you can see, our river is full of boaters, and that, of course, brings people from all over the nation. And they actually loved coming here. And they got more fish here than they had even the boaters were like, can we come back there, can we come back there? So we love having events like this and sponsoring that so we can get people into our area. We do still have freighters coming into our ports here in Lorain. This was a really nice shot. I think there's 1,000 footers, 12,000 footers. And they are 1,200, excuse me. Very nice. It's really humbling to stand on this dock when one of those are going past because it looks like a city passing on them. I mean, it's just, they're huge. But that's just a really nice shot of that. This is another project we did out on the pier. Several years ago, we got a grant, and we redid the pier, we did the walkway, we did different things, and it's a really great place to go walk in the evenings. Very peaceful, very nice, and you're right out there by the Lake Erie. This is just planning area that we're working with. They have certain colors of these are the city, certain other port, some of the county, and some are private areas. But these are areas that we are kind of looking at to help develop in that. And then this is the aerial on Broadway. We helped Radhika. Radhika was very helpful in a lot of things and taught us a few things as well. But yes, we did. Of course, you can see we're here at the event center and 54 rooms. This beautiful space, the rooftop, it's really great. And we all remember a few years ago what it looked like. And now look at this beautiful facility that we have here. And we, here at the port, specifically Tom and Tiffany, we were created so that we could be an economic development tool. And so we put together a stack, if you will. That's what Tom calls it, a development stack. So if you're going to do any kind of development, whether it's redevelopment, whether it's new building, whatever, it's always a really good idea, if you like saving money, to come and sit down and have a conversation with Tom and Tiffany, because we have so many different programs that we can tap into and assist you with to save you money on your development, and we all need that. We did the building donation for this building. We facilitated that. We help with the PACE financing, and the tax credits that Radhika was talking about. We did a construction financing, which basically, that saves you the taxes on all of your building material. And if you've got a large project like this, that's a chunk of change. Then we work with the city every day for the tax abatements and the tax incentives. We can also help with, we just recently received a $500,000 brownfield grant so that we can go in and do studies, which again helps facilitate, somebody goes into to buy a property, and I don't know what's in there, it could be contaminants in there. Come to us, we can do, with that grant, we can do the survey to see if there's contaminants there. At least that way you know, and we'll pay for that through the grant, so that way you know, okay, I know what I'm dealing with here, And then there are other funds, we don't have one right now, but there are other funds that are cleanup funds for brownfields, that once you have that assessment, then that's the next step. But yes, we can definitely help with that. And then with the asbestos survey as part of that as well. And you're sitting here at this beautiful space. But the thing is before you start a project, come and talk to Tiffany and Tom. It's a conversation. If we can't help you, okay. But if we can save you a lot of money. And there's a lot of different ways that we can do it. So there's so many variables that each project is unique. So if you come and sit down and talk to Tom and Tiffany and tell them what you're wanting, what you're planning, then they can, in their mind, say, okay, this financing tool will help you, or this one will, or this one. And we can actually stack some of those. So it will save a lot of money and a lot of time. It is time consuming though to do these, so it's not like we can start this in a month, because it does take time to do all the paperwork. So come to us early on.
Next, now we'll finally be hearing about our federal and regional progress. So I'd like to introduce Chris Korleski, the Director of the U.S. EPA's Great Lakes National Program Office, otherwise known as GLENCO. GLENCO coordinates U.S. efforts in implementing the goals and objectives of the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement, which is a commitment between the United States and Canada to restore and protect our shared waterways, working in the strategic framework of the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, or GRI. Director Chris Korleski.
Good morning, everybody, or yes, still morning. Mr. Mayor, thank you, Max, thank you for having me here. I want to thank everyone who put together the program today. It's always fun. I'm in Ohio, so always will be. So it's always fun to come to Ohio from Chicago and just see old EPA friends and new Ohio friends and now new Lorain friends. Special shout out to Kate Golden. I just want to say, I never realized until the last year how much Kate was involved in making the environmental aspects of this program, of our program, a success. So just thank you very much. So just a couple of comments here. I'm not going to take up a whole lot of time, but there are some, I think, really important things to talk about. I'd like to start every one of these conversations with a heartfelt thank you to the people here. It's really fun being a federal agency, and right now we are blessed with abundant funding. That's not always the case, in the course of a career. But we are blessed with very abundant funding right now, and it's really fun to be, people still call me the banker. He's got the money, he goes to the banker. I'm not a banker. I'm blessed with congressional appropriations that are allowing us to do a tremendous amount of work. And we're working across the Great Lakes Basin. We've been working here in Lorain, as people know. But even with those abundant resources that we're able to share with the state and with local communities to get all this work done, none of this would be, I think, lasting or be of the significance it is without local folks like you making sure that the way the work is being done and that the benefits of the environmental work that are being done ultimately benefit the community in a long-lasting way. So what do I mean by that? So I'm an environmental guy, and as I tell people, we're really good, and my staff is really good at working with us to figure out how to clean things up. We're really good at figuring out how do you deal with contaminated sediment? How do you deal with habitat restoration? That's what we do, it's what we love doing, it's what we're here for, and right now we are blessed. I don't say that word lightly. We are blessed with a lot of federal funding under the GLRI and the bipartisan infrastructure law to get that done. And we are determined, come hell or high water, to get that funding out there so that these environmental projects here in the Black River, in other AOCs across the Great Lakes, is going to get done. But I think everybody in this room knows the environmental restoration, as critical as it is, and while it's what we do and what we're really good at, it's only the beginning of a rejuvenation process of the kind that we're seeing here in Lorain and other communities. I've probably said it here in Lorain before. If you clean it, they will come. That's kind of always been my mantra since doing this program. I grew up in Lyons, Ohio, not all that far from here. It was an old steel town. We had the decaying mills. We had the broken down manufacturing plants. We went through that very rough period in the 70s and the 80s when everything was shutting down. And what do you do with that? And when you lose the jobs and the people leave and you've got, the legacy contamination. So in a place like this, a lot of the contamination that has been dealt with in other overseas, it was here for 100 years, longer in some places. You have to get that out. You have to figure out how we're going to deal with that so that you can restore fundamentally the environment which we live. You want clean water. You want clean water that is a great source of drinking water. You want fish that don't have tumors. You want benthic communities, that's a fancy word for the creatures that grow on the bottom, sort of that promote a healthy food chain. You need all those things. So we're good at getting that back. But and this is what's so critical, that I think is a trigger for people will come back. What can we do with this cleaned up area? And that's where the local community comes in. And I don't think, I've seen a number of examples across the Great Lakes of where the local community has stepped up to do the kinds of restoration, not in the pure environmental sense, but in a community sense and in the economic sense that we're seeing here. But I tell you what, this is a showpiece. There are a number of other AOCs out there that I think would probably want to come to Lorain to look and see this and go, that's where we want to go. That's where we want to be. And everyone would say, yeah, this isn't finished yet. They're still, COVID set everybody back by 2 years. Things were, people in the bang, everything stopped. And that was painful for everybody. But I just really want to thank you for your resilience and not stopping and saying, okay, a bad period, but we're going to keep working to bring this community back. And that's something I can't do. We can't do that for Lorain or any other community, but you can and you have. And I just, we throw words like thank yous and partnership around easy. And I'm a federal bureaucrat, so I can be a master at that. Thank you, oh, we have partnerships, oh, we partner with them. And I thank you, because what you've done here is amazing. And I know you're not done yet, but I think ultimately, when I'm retired, and I will say, by the way, and I've already mentioned this to some other people here, let's just say I hopefully am not all that long for the working world. I don't plan to do this forever, as fun as that would be. And I want to come back to the North Shore. And I got to tell you, when my wife and I were driving around last night, I'm like, wow. And I got to tell you, the old fashions are delicious. The pork tenderloin was great. It's the second time I've had dinner here and stayed at the hotel. This place is phenomenal. It is phenomenal. And I hope to have lunch on the rooftop today. It sounds like that may be an option. So that's just one personal example of the kind of things that are happening here. Now this is happening across the Great Lakes in a number of communities. Right now we're We're hell-bent for leather up in the St. Louis River, AOC, that's up near the Duluth area. We've got work, Ashtabula, Ashtabula, not too far from here. Hey, that's delisted. That's done. And if you can see how that harbor looks now, it's really exciting. Was it last August we were up there, I think, which was huge. And in not too long a time, since we've now, if I'm not mistaken, got management actions complete in the Black River AOC, supposed to be complete. Has to heal up. Oh, by the way, that little doodle drawing of how AOCs work, I'm actually going to send that to our White House contacts, because when we did the event, helped the president get ready for the event here, trying to explain to these very smart, very motivated 28-year-old political people in Washington what an AOC program is, that did a much better job than I could ever do of trying to convey to those people in 5 minutes or less. So, it's happening across the Great Lakes. But I just want to be really somber for 1 second. In this business, I don't take anything for granted. What comes can go. And as we all know, we're living in an era of instability. I think political instability, cultural instability, whatever you want to call it. And we can talk about it for hours about what we're concerned about or not concerned about. I'm not really here to talk about that. But what I do know is, right now, we have this tremendous gift in the bipartisan infrastructure law of $1 billion. And you've also heard, so when the president was here, he announced that by the end of 2030, we want to have the vast majority of the AOC work done in the AOCs. Is that ambitious? Oh my God, it's incredibly ambitious. And we knew that when we made that recommendation, that would be the goal that we shoot for. But I'm encouraging, as I go around the Great Lakes, I am encouraging everybody who's got an AOC, never assume that money will be around forever. Never assume that money that Congress has put out and appropriated, especially if it's coming on a year-by-year basis, never assume, don't take for granted that, oh yeah, that'll always be here, or it'll be here for as long as Congress wants it to be here. So my message to everybody in the AOC world is, the moment is now. Don't wait. Yes, it's ambitious, but figure out how to, and we have a motto back in my shop, GSD, which stands for get stuff done. Folks, now's the time to get stuff done. We've got this incredible window. I don't know how long it will last, but this is an opportunity that we may not ever have again. And we need to get this work done now. Ambitious or not, hard, challenging or not. We heard how hard it is, with a hotel. That's just one hotel, and I'm not minimizing just one hotel. But for that project, you talk how hard, all the work, everything it took to make that happen, and yet you got it done. And that's what I'm telling everybody. Yeah, there are problems, there are hurdles. Yes, it's going to be difficult. We're going to have really terrible days. There's probably going to be fights. There will be arguments. There will be disagreements. Yeah, that goes with the territory. You know what? I don't care. Get it done. That's what I'm telling my staff. And I'm a really nice guy. I don't normally say things like that. I don't normally talk like that. But I'm like, get it done. And get it done now. Because I do not want to lose this money. Now, I'm just going to sidestep for just a moment and talk even more generally about infrastructure. So, the GRI money, the $1 billion for AOCs, is just one portion, as you well know, of a much larger effort on infrastructure. On the environmental side, I think some of the key things that's also addressing, and it sounds like it's relevant here in Lorain, are things like cleaning up brownfields. So there's been a huge addition to brownfields funding, and Superfund funding has got an incredible influx of money. And as a former, briefly serving water director at Region 5, one of my favorite, probably from a public health perspective, I think my most significant concern is lead in pipes, lead in drinking water pipes. Children should not be exposed to lead in drinking water. And I think the effort that's underway, that's not my area anymore, but I'm optimistic that's going to address a problem that in my view should have been addressed a long time ago. But at least we're getting to it now. At least there's significant money being put into it now. I know a lot of communities are doing that. So, again, I think I'm gonna close where I started. Just a couple of thank you. Because the federal government cannot, will not be around to address every problem, every issue in every community. It can't, and I think most reasonable people know that. We can certainly help. Hi, I'm from the federal government, and I'm here to help people. But at the end of the day, and I think not everyone shares this view with me. A lot of people view the federal government as sort of the overriding angel that will come in and has the ability and the money to fix and keep oversight on every environmental issue. We don't. We can't. We don't have the resources. That's why the local participation that I'm seeing here is something you should be so proud of. And more importantly, I get the sense it's not going to stop Lorain. When this AOC is delisted and no one remembers anything about the GLRI, it's you folks and the people who succeed you keeping an eye on this incredible area and making sure that it continues to develop, to progress in the way that we want it to. That's going to be up to you. And I know you're going to do a great job. It's not going to be up to the federal government. And I would say there are parts of my career where I would have always said that, but I'm certainly saying that now. The emphasis and the need for the local communities to step up, using that federal funding as a foundation, which we are happy to provide. But I think that's what I find most motivating about this entire program, is seeing what the local communities are doing. They're taking ownership of their communities, they're stepping up, they're telling their young people, this is not something that's going to be done soon. That's what makes me, I think, most proud. That's what makes me most proud about being in the ring today, is what you've done here. It's just incredible. So, I will thank you all for that. I don't know, Linda, do you want me to take questions? I'm happy to, if anybody has any about anything related to the GLRI or federal involvement or anything else. But I just wanted to end where I started and say thank you so much. You're doing an incredible job. And even in these unstable times, this really matters. And this is what will keep us going as a country and a nation. And like I said, I want to look around and look at some houses. You never know what's going to happen. So I'll stop there. Happy to take any questions. But again, thank you. And we are happy to have been a part of this and want to continue to be a part of this until it's finished, until the environmental work is finished.
All right, next we are going to hear from Mark Johnson, not the weatherman, but the Deputy Director for Business and Regulatory Affairs for the Ohio EPA. Mark acts as the primary contact for regulated entities to help coordinate permitting activities within the agency, particularly for complex projects requiring multiple permits. Joining the Ohio EPA in 2012, Mark has worked in multiple divisions, has extensive experience in environmental regulations, enforcement, remediation, brownfield redevelopment, and ecological restoration. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Johnson.
Appreciate everybody's time today. I know try to backing up the lunch, so I'll try to keep it short and sweet as possible. Again, just beautiful day, gorgeous venue. Appreciate you guys hosting me today and allowing me the opportunity to speak to everyone. Looking at the Black River, Lake Erie, I'm native to Northeast Ohio, big fisherman. Wish I was out there on the lake today. But again, it just really showcases the amazing efforts from all of us in this room and many folks who are not in this room on what we can accomplish as a team. Local, state, and federal partnerships, it's imperative. And the Black River, wow, just a beautiful success story. It really strikes that balance in my mind. And I started out in the regulatory world, started out as a consultant, just always loved being outdoors. And through my career path, been able to get in the economic development side of things. And it's, my goal, and the director of Ohio EPA, Lori Stevenson, her goal is striking that balance of economic development and environmental protection. And that really showcases it there. When I first pulled in, I was telling folks earlier, I pulled down there and I was talking with Lynn. She's like, 30, 40, 50 people. I see like 2,000 people go. If I'm sweating bullets, I'm like, I'm like, man, I hope that's not me down there. But, you know, it really shows what work can be done. Next slide, please. So again, you know, with all this infrastructure money, AOC money, brownfield redevelopment, there's a lot of money out there right now. So I just kind of wanted to focus my presentation on how you can work effectively with Ohio EPA and on a wide breadth of things, from everything from lead service line replacement to water, wastewater infrastructure to a brand new build or a brand new business that's looking at this area. You know, we want to be a partner in that process. We don't want to be a burden. Certainly we're a regulatory agency, but I think as Kate can contest, when she's calling us for a permit that needs to get issued in 2 weeks, we're there to help. Before I get into the presentation, I also want to thank my team. A couple of folks from Ohio EPA out of the Northeast District Office are here, and they're great. They're really boots on the ground, the folks that make a difference and can really work through these processes. And so just wanted to say thank you for that, guys. Next slide. So again, you know, a lot of different permits apply to a lot of different projects. And again, we like to have early and often communication with the agency. So before your applications arrive to us, and before you send anything to us formally, please give us a call. I can help serve as a main point of contact for the agency. Again, the earlier you can talk with us about whatever you're thinking, the better off we are, and we can work together on solutions as a team. And again, that's the main key takeaway here, is just call us, talk with us. That's what we're here for. Next slide. So overall, as you're considering your project anywhere, you know, these are just some areas that I always like to talk with folks about, because they're some of our permits that apply to it. So, you know, looking at wastewater and water infrastructure, what's existing, what is needed for the site. That's a key thing. On-site construction or existing conditions. Are there streams? Are there wetlands? What hurdles do you have on your project that we can help overcome and help plan to ensure that we meet your timeline for the project? Certainly air quality requirements. You know, as the federal landscape changes, you know, here in Ohio, we're a fully delegated state. So whatever the US EPA sets as a standard, that's what we implement here in Ohio. And the rules and regulations change so we can, you know, enjoy the outdoors and breathe in clean air. But again, air quality is an important aspect to a lot of this. So we want to be, you know, we want to be transparent and predictable for your project, so you know what you're getting into here. Next slide. Again, we always recommend, if you have a complex project, having a good consultant that's familiar with the agency and familiar with the permitting process, it's been a successful tool. Not every project needs consultants, but again, it seems some of the more complex projects, more complex permits, it helps streamline that process. So we always recommend looking at a consultant if needed. You know, once your permit is submitted to the Ohio EPA, again, communication is key. So we want to be a partner with you, your consultants, and want the process to be as transparent as possible. So again, we try to establish regular meetings. For example, working on a big economic development project that most folks have heard of, we meet with the company 3 times a week right now on all of their permits. You know, again, it's a big project, and we want to be a partner throughout that process. You know, sometimes it's hard to beat that persona of, as Director Perleski said, a bureaucratic agency where it's a black hole. That's not our intention here. We are here to help. Next slide. So handling communication throughout your permit. Again, any permit process, we try to stride ourselves on having, you know, clear, open communication. Sometimes there are hurdles that you know, break down in communication or issues that come about. Again, picking up the phone and being able to call us is an important key, whether it's myself or Kurt or his team. You know, we establish key points of contact when you're working with the agency. Again, we want to be helpful here. Next slide. So after you get your permit, definitely important to follow those regulations and understand those regulations. So reviewing your permit, asking questions, working with us, we can help you understand what you're getting into, whether it's a small restaurant down on Main Street or a Republic Steel down the way there, that we try to work with folks so they can maintain compliance and open up the river for everybody to enjoy. So if I can summarize my entire presentation in one word, it's communication. Again, that's just the overarching theme here. So I wanted to highlight real quick, again, one of the pillars of Director Stevens' administration is compliance assistance. In her tenure with Ohio EPA, she actually stood up our OCAP division, Office of Compliance Assistance and Pollution Prevention. And the reason I kind of want to talk about this real quick is, you know, they can help out small businesses in a confidential manner. You know, everything from a small restaurant to a small little mom and pop shop that, you know, they think about, oh my goodness, EPA, holy moly, that's a hard thing to tackle. They can work with our OCAP division in a confidential manner and get the permit process. They can help out with applications. They can help them maintain compliance. It's a very effective division within the agency. Kind of an outlier that helps businesses through, and again, it's a pillar of the Director Stevens' administration, and it's been a fantastic process for a lot of companies. Next slide. And as the mayor had mentioned, the dredge facility, I kind of wanted to showcase this as well, and really all this stuff I've been blabbering about, open communication, working with Ohio EPA. Here's a real-world example of what can be accomplished from local, state, and private partners and federal partners on this. And this dredge facility is very important. This helps support approximately 2,500 jobs in the area and over $430 million in annual business revenue. By keeping that river clean, beneficially reusing this material, and accessing the river. I mean, it's just a key project. Slide. And again, this is just kind of an overview showing the overall facility, and much smarter folks in this room at consulting firms can talk through that whole process. But again, it just shows that, you know, with a lot of right folks at the table, this is what we can accomplish here. Next slide. And again, just showing, Mayor, thank you. Kate, she's been great to work with, and she's regularly working with our team, and it can kind of show, you know, EPA, the ARPA funds, and everybody working together cohesively to accomplish this. So I'll end it there. Next slide. Open it up for any questions. Again, please call with whatever you need. That's what we're here for. And beautiful day in Lorain, beautiful venue, greatly appreciated. I can smell the food coming in, so I want to be respectful. I know everybody's probably getting hungry. Any questions? Excellent. Thank you very much.
Finally, before lunch is served, we have the pleasure of hearing from Ms. Lynn Garrity, who is the Lake Erie Program Administrator for the Ohio Lake Erie Commission. The Ohio Lake Erie Commission strives to preserve our lake's natural resources, protect our waters and ecosystem, and promote economic development by coordinating with state government and local resource management projects. Lynn is somebody that we have had the pleasure of working with quite a bit with at the Black River AOC Advisory Committee, and her work obviously does not go unnoticed. We all appreciate her tireless efforts in restoring the Black River and everything that we do here in terms of natural resource restoration. So thank you, Lynn, and let's give her a round of applause.
Good morning. We're almost done with morning, and I know lunch is right on the other side, so I'm going to try and be efficient, but I echo Director Korleski and Deputy Director Johnson in thanking everyone and all your partnerships. I'm going to just share a little bit. Director Korleski talked about the path forward for Black River in terms of our area of concern. So my job is to help facilitate getting Black River area of concern off the list of area of concern for Ohio. And so we're just going to do a really quick of where that's going and that path to delisting. Next slide, please. So as folks have mentioned, the partnerships are really key to our area of concern program, and it can't go. It's really essential to the area of concern program at a federal, state, and local partnership, and especially in the area of concern program. Ohio Lake Erie Commission and Ohio EPA work hand in hand with the local AOC committees that you all are involved in, and then of course US EPA and our federal partners. Next slide. So from just a big picture and what we are working with from an Ohio AOC standpoint, areas of concern, we have 4 in Ohio among the various ones across the Great Lakes, and it covers a significant amount of land area. It covers 4 ports, 7 beaches, and over 1.5 million folks that live in these areas. So quite a big extensive area, and these are really our focus that we work exclusively on to get those to those delisting under what we call the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement. So this is a measure. We are tracking this across the line in how Ohio is getting to that goal, right? How are we going to get to delist those areas of concern? And there's a lot of acronyms, I'm sorry, for areas of concern program, but beneficial use impairments is our key measure. We have 34 across all 4 AOCs. and we have 14 completed, which we'll highlight one today. But that's really our benchmark. Get those all done, and we're on our way. Management actions, which is our projects, and we have a number of those here in black, and we have a series of those across the areas of concern in Ohio. We have a lot to get done, but many of those are funded, and so we are really on the tail end of getting those implemented in the next couple of years. Contaminated sediment, Director Kraleski mentioned about the key of that around our areas of concern. So that's really a core principle to the work we do. And so again, we're on our way to get those completed. We have about 1 million cubic yards of contaminated sediment that have been removed and remediated in our areas of concern. And we have about 1.5 million left to go, so we're on our way. And then obviously the delisting. So we'll celebrate that in a minute. Next slide. So, Director Kraleski, I keep bringing this up. I can't get away from it yet, so I'm going to keep talking about it. But it is inspiration for the black, because we're going to talk about black next. But Ashtabula was delisted last year, and it had a number of management action projects. It removed a number of contaminated sediment, including PCBs, and it restored over a mile of shoreline. And it removed those beneficial use impairments, and we were able to delist that. And again, it could not happen with the partnerships we had at the local level to accomplish that. We had members there that had been part of that group for over 30 years, and without them, it was really an accomplishment. So this is inspiration for our next step for Black River. Next slide. So Black River, so what are we working on for Black River? And you're going to hear more about these projects this afternoon from our local implementing partners. Again, the city and the county are just been phenomenal in helping us reach these goals. So these are the projects that we've been focused on in terms of management actions here in the Black River. And they are all getting close to substantially, all of them are pretty much substantially complete. So we're really excited about that milestone. Next slide. So we talk about beneficial use impairments, and these are the kind of the markers of where progress is being made in the black, and if we're reaching those metrics from an area of concern effort. And so for the black, we have 9 beneficial use impairments, and a number of those, we have 4 of those that have been removed. Most recently, just as of a couple weeks ago, we received the approval from USEPA in partnership with our local advisory committee to remove the restrictions of navigational dredging activities. And so that is our most recent removal. We're really excited about that removal. It essentially is telling us that the material in the river for dredging that occurs in the dredging can now be reused and used for activities such as the aquatic beneficial use or other beneficial use of that material, and it meets those levels that we were reaching for. So that's a really significant beneficial use impairment, and we're really excited about that. So you can see we have a few left, and we are working really hard to do that. Next slide. So the path to delisting. So black, now that our Ashtabula, we put a lot of investment in time and resources to get that to delisting, and we are now all hands on deck for the Black River in terms of meeting that next milestone for the black. And so we are going to be working in the next 2 years to do any final monitoring and evaluation of those remaining beneficial use impairments, most slowly around some of the biological communities in the river, and then work towards removing those 5 remaining beneficial use impairments. We have a couple already on the dock. We'll be moving forward in partnership with the committee to do that between now and 2025. And we are working towards the 2025 mark in terms of delisting the area of concern. There's a lot of work that has to be done, but we again will be working at accelerating that effort for black to be our next area of concern to be delisted in Ohio. And this just gives you some resources. Please, the Ohio Lake Erie Commission manages its website for the areas of concern and the Black River, and then obviously there's a Black River AOC website as well. But please, if you need any information, please contact myself or go to the website, and we can certainly steer you in the right direction. But thanks again for your time, and we're really excited and working with all of you on our final leg to delisting the area of concern here in the Black River. Thank you.
Before we get started with lunch, want to draw everybody's attention over to these panels over here that were created for us by Firefish. Next, we're going to hear specifically on some local progress that we've made from local folks who work with us week in and week out on the Black River AOC. And so first, we are going to hear from the city and their consultants. So I'd like to introduce the stormwater manager for the city of Lorain, Kate Golden, as well as AJ Goots from Cold Water Consulting. Kate is going to speak first.
Okay, so people have spent a lot of time saying thank you to me, but I could absolutely, I am not responsible for the work that has been done. I started with the city in 2013 as a stormwater manager, so I was hired to run a regulatory program, right? So the chief of staff at that time, like for my first week, was like, hey, we got a couple of these little projects that we're doing, you know, out of this property that we own behind the steel mills, and I'm gonna have this lady, her name's Kristen, I'm gonna have her come out and talk to you about these projects and like give you a sample. It's like, okay. So Kristen picks me up, and I don't know this person, and you know, we're chatting and you know, getting to know each other, and she drives me out to the reclamation site, which wasn't called the reclamation site at that point in time. We named it, that's what we decided it was gonna be called. And she's explaining everything that's happened on this site. She's pointing out different projects that have been worked on in the last, you know, I guess it was like 3 years at that point in time, right? And I get back to the office and I'm like, I have no idea what just happened, right? Like, I didn't know where I had been, I didn't know why I was there, and now it's like 80% of what I do. So, I would like to thank first Cold Water Consulting. Cold Water is responsible for quite a bit of what you are going to see today if you take our tour, right? So Coldwater has been the city's environmental consultant since prior to my tenure with the city. So Kristen and her team have worked on the site since 2009, right, when the first Aero project was done, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But you know, I want to say thank you to Coldwater for supporting us. It's kind of a big day for Kristen, right? So she's worked on this project since it started, right? Since before we even knew what we were doing. We didn't have a goal, we just knew we wanted to clean it up. So thank you to Coldwater, thank you to AJ and Chip and Jack and all of the folks from your team that have worked on the projects and, you know, helped me stay sane and helped secure the funding and helped work with all the project partners. Thank you to Ohio EPA and Lynn Garrity and all of her predecessors. We've talked quite a bit today about the relationship that the city has with our project partners, and quite literally, again, you know, Lynn champions our work at any point in time, any chance that she has, so it's very much appreciated. Northeast District Office and Ohio EPA, as well as Central Office, we've talked about how fantastic they have been. You know, we need projects to change and plans to change, and they do so quickly. And when you have 6 months left in your grant, you can't wait 6 months for a PTI. You need that PTI to like tomorrow, right? So, you know, there have been a lot of creative regulatory solutions to helping us solve our problems, and that's very much appreciated. So kind of locally, Mark Wickline, who is not here today, Mark is our site manager out at the reclamation site and has, I think, like thinks that that site is like this third child, right? Like he rules it with an iron fist, and he has coordinated and managed thousands of trucks in and out moving material, all the equipment that was necessary for that, so I want to say thank you to him as well as our internal staff, Mayor Bradley, city administrations prior to Mayor Bradley for trusting this lady that walks in and says, don't worry, it's a good idea, we should do this, right? So I appreciate everybody going with it, and you know, we are here today because of the work of all of those people. So we can start off. So AJ and I gave this presentation last year at the Stormwater Conference, and that was May 18th of 2021. So it was just a year ago, except we recorded it in like April. So we haven't really looked at it in over a year. So we're going to give this a whirl, right? My name is Kate Golden. I'm the Stormwater Manager for the City of Lorain. AJ Goots is Project Engineer and Senior, Project Manager and Senior Engineer with Coldwater. And AJ has, you know, really helped with the administration of the project and has, you know, been my right-hand person in working through these projects. So just a quick agenda, and I'm going to jam through some of this stuff because you guys know some of this information. But we'll talk a little bit about the history of the river, the AOC program. There's kind of two phases of grant programs that we ran. The individual grant projects was started in like 09, 2010, and then these larger GLRI award that occurred in 2015. That'll talk about benefits, outcomes, summary of work, and key takeaways. All right, so not unlike many industrial rivers, right, in the Great Lakes region and the state of Ohio, the Black River was not always the river that you see today, right? Previous industrial uses left significant impacts in the river system itself, which resulted in that river being listed as an area of concern. And that was primarily for, you know, based on manufacturing waste introduction into the river and the loss of habitat that occurs because of that. We were at a lack of riparian buffers, we had poor water quality, you know, all of the things that we would expect to see in these industrial rivers we saw. So the question was, how do we address the problem, right? It was an overwhelming scale. There was no roadmap, there were no blueprints, there was nobody to tell us what we needed to do, right? The task was fix it. Okay. So, how did we do that, right? And what we really needed to look at was a long-term approach to solving this problem. We needed to take one bite of the apple at a time, right? But how are we going to get from non-restored, impacted, contaminated property to thriving natural environment, right? So what we did is we did that incrementally and slowly, and through this programmatic effect, with the first project building on the second project, building on the third project, et cetera, et cetera. And we were really interested in keeping the project designs simple. We needed to not over-engineer these things, right? We were trying to create solutions without creating maintenance responsibilities. The city doesn't have the funds to do these projects, right? The city doesn't have funds to maintain these projects. In perpetuity, if we have to run them through PTBS permits and different, you know, engineered structures. So we really wanted to try to keep them as simple as possible. So in order to understand the problems that we had to have data to support what our issues were. So each of these lines and dots and triangles and stars that you see identify the location of sampling that has occurred often multiple times over the course of many years to build that database of data, right, that then informed the design and decisions that we were making. And it really gave us the ability to track progress towards meeting the goals that we were looking to meet. So I talked a little bit about the couple different ways that these projects were funded. Initially, in the earlier years, 2009, 2010, through about 2015, they were done with all of these tiny little projects, right? And those were all different funding sources, right? They were smaller grants that were received from Fish and Wildlife, or NOAA, or ODNR, or Ohio EPA. Almost all of them, with the exception of that first project, which was ARRA funded, were GLRI, right? So ultimately, the majority of these projects were solved through GLRI funding. But it wasn't until 2015 I guess it was in 2015, 2014, Karen Rodriguez, right? With Great Lakes National Program Office was our AOC coordinator at the federal level, and she came to us and she was like, okay, we're going to give you money next year. You need to come up with your projects. We said, okay. So we worked with Ohio EPA and we worked through our own process. And we came up with a list of 5 projects that we believed, which would ultimately become management actions, right? That we believed is what we needed to do to solve our problems. So in September of 2015, the $15.19, I think, $1 million grant was awarded to the city of Lorain to help us solve these problems. So, yeah, you want to go back? I know to start around. The initial efforts. Okay, so this project, the AERA project, was the very first project that was completed, and it was done based on one of those earlier grant programs. So at that point in time, I was not with the city at that point. This was in 2009. And through the AERA program, the feds were soliciting shovel-ready projects. So Kristen and her team, it was a different company, it wasn't Full Bar, it was nothing green at that time. We're like, oh yeah, we got a shovel-ready project. And then they went over here and put some things together. And they were like, here's our shovel-ready project, right? So in boom, $6.3 million was awarded to the city. And that was the largest award in the state of Ohio at that point in time. So what that did is that really started the restoration efforts on this property. And the goal of the project was to remove 50+ foot deep mountains of slag or contaminated steel mill byproducts out of this native natural floodplain area, out of hydraulic connectivity with the river, and up to a place where it's no longer going to contribute, runoff into the river. So that project included fish shelf. It was the first fish shelf installation on the site. We'll talk a little bit more about the fish shelves that were installed. And what it also pointed out is that there was a whole lot more work that needed to be done, right, on the property to solve the problems that we had. So the fish shelves that we're talking about, the fish shelves that Mayor Bradley mentioned a little bit in his presentation, there's approximately 8,000 feet of this traditional fish shelf, plus another fish shelf right here across the river. It's kind of like the first of its kind. You can see it up in the hill. AJ will talk a little bit about it. And the goal of these fish shelves was to add structure back into the river that had been removed via the historic dredging operations that occurred in these areas. Dredging is obviously a critical component to keeping our river navigable, right? It's something that we are going to continue to have done within this river. But we want to do so, we want to help, we want to do that responsibly, right? So there's a need to balance that, commercial need and the economic need with environmental needs as well. So these fish shelves are kind of like roads that we built out into the river. And they're comprised of different sizes of rocks and sands and stones and gravels. And it has resulted in increases in the fish and bug populations in these areas, right? So this is, like somebody was saying, like if you build it, Chris, I think it was you, if you build it, they will come, right? And that's really what we saw here, right? Once we put that structure back into the river, all of a sudden we have walleye spawning and like all of these bugs and critters that we didn't have before. So the initial efforts continued in those, early teen years. There was a bioremediation cell that was removed from an upland, kind of bluffy area adjacent to the river, and was replaced with native prairie habitat. This is the Fish and Wildlife. This is what was the Fish and Wildlife Project. ODNR and Fish. It includes slag removal on a native floodplain property located immediately adjacent to the Heron Rookery. So it's on the peninsula that sits adjacent to that Heron Rookery, which is, I believe, listed as an important animal assemblage for the state of Ohio. So this is one of the earlier projects. This is one of the first projects that I worked on when I started with the city in 2013. Next slide. It also included some bank restoration and stabilization as well as fish shelf installation in areas that were not part of that the city of Lorain's reclamation site, which is the area where most of the projects have been completed. So this photo right here was taken just down at Black River Landing. There was an eroding slope that was rebuilt, and that was included in one of the earlier projects. So we really looked at trying to address problems, along the course of that lower 5 miles of the Black River, not just the areas most affected by the industrial legacy. And we would be remiss to not include information on the county's invasive vegetation management program. The county received funding also through GLRI to help assist with invasive vegetation management in the lower Black River area of concern. The county provided very critical services to the city in helping control the spread of frag on our restoration sites as well as on adjacent sites to the website. So in 2015, I already told you, in 2015 we got that big grant, right? And that was really the impetus for where we are today, right? The $15 million grant from USDA Nuenco originally included a scope of work that was very different than what you will see today, right? The initial goal was to remove the material, all of the material along the riparian corridor between about river miles 2.3 and 5-ish, right? So we did about a year's worth of environmental assessment. We spent about $1 million, so that $15 million grant. And we identified that we didn't have enough money, right? So our initial scope was going to cost us like 60 million, 70 million, maybe get 15, right? So we went back to Glenbow, we were like, hey, we need more money. And they thought about it for like 45 seconds and we're like, no. Solve your problem, right? Come up with something that's going to solve the problem. And I don't like it, right? So we did. We went back to the drawing board and we looked at, okay, how do we creatively solve this problem, right? And what was determined or what ultimately occurred was a very, very large-scale stormwater management project, right? So the goal of the project, instead of removing that material from the floodplain from hydraulic connectivity, the goal was now to pull it back, was to regrade it, and to cap and cover it, very much like you would a landfill, right? So if we remove the ability for water to infiltrate into that contaminated material, we reduce the likelihood of contamination getting to our river, right? So that is exactly what we did. That is a presentation that occurred right down there 7 years ago. That's me. Well, good 7 years ago. Okay. I'm going to hand it over to AJ. He's going to come on up and talk to you about the more recent activity that's currently happening.
Thank you, Dave. I'll be picking up sort of where Kate left off with the management action projects that came under the larger GLRI grant. And this map here shows essentially that reclamation site. And the green area, the non-highlighted area, really is a lot of the work limits from those earlier initial projects, from various grants that the city was able to piece together. And you can see really with this goal of trying to create this green belt along the river. And the highlighted portion, however, is the one main management action, reclamation site restoration project. The other two management action projects I'll be speaking about are one where the start location is, which is our sea remediation system project. And then not shown on this map is where Kate alluded to earlier, is our fish health habitat project, which is right outside the window here. The first one I'll talk about is our sea remediation system project. This is a before picture of this area. And essentially what it was is there was a legacy underdrain system along the river that just wasn't working anymore. And what was happening was as runoff was infiltrating through the slag and the steel byproduct material, it was picking up oils and then letting that water sort of seep through the bank directly into the river. Additionally, there's a large amount of lime on the site, so water was also getting a very high pH. And again, this was almost a point source type problem where we had to have a specific measure to address this. Next one. So essentially what it is this is a more engineered system where we put a collection system to intercept the infiltrated runoff that has that oil, has that high pH, bring it into a holding tank and a chamber system to allow oil separation with a skimming device, and then allow that water to be cleaned and neutralized, and then prevent it from discharging to the river in that capacity. With this one too, you may see on the site today, we did have to do some modifications. This was one of the earlier projects, and you have to see how these things perform. And this was, again, thanks to Ohio EPA Northeast District Office, we needed some help getting the measures fixed to work within the grant timeline and the AOC needs, and being good partners, they fully understood the constraints there, and really helped us out. And we spoke a lot about teamwork, but this was a great example of it, and we really could not have gotten the adjustments done to this without their assistance. The next one is our bulkhead fish shelter project, which we mentioned is just across the river here outside the window with the Lorain Sailing and Yacht Club. This is a case where, as Kate's talking about fish habitat, fish shelves, those are relatively easy to implement in more natural banks. But, in the very lower parts of the river, as in many industrial rivers, we don't have natural shoreline. We have hardened, armored shoreline. And this is an area of the river where, traditionally be very difficult to get material. It's running off, it's seeping down through that material and really impacting that well. Afterwards, we're able to provide a nice buffer against that wetland, a nice green slope, again, capped and covered. We're stopping the infiltration and having things run off. And then, sort of one last before and after here. So here we're sort of looking upstream, and it's the same area we were shown before from higher on the existing terrace. Again, it gives you sort of the scale of 40 acres worth of slag and material. However, in the upper picture, you can see just really pretty much all of that area has been regraded, covered, we're having vegetation come in. And two other things on that photo I'd like to point out is you can see those top terraces and some other areas. We've been fortunate to continue working with Ohio and US EPA. We're able to continue with additional funding to really finish this out. We were able to leverage as much of the grant money as we could to cover as much as we could, and fortunately for some coordination and the available funding that was mentioned earlier, we're able to enhance and really finish this off, really put a bow on it, get this completely cleared and covered. And then also along the riverbank, you'll see on that photo is another way we've been able to sort of enhance the work involved. This is what we call the Arbor Aquatic Habitat Restoration Project. Just through efficiencies in budgeting of management actions, we had grant funds available to add more habitat to the project than was originally involved. So we've been able to add an additional, say, 1,000 feet of riparian bank restoration, as well as about another 500 feet of in-water fish shelf habitat. Really, building on the work we've done before, protecting a critical component of that bend in the river where the habitat is. So it's, not just providing all the benefits that were mentioned earlier, but also structural protection as well. And, with all this work, so what are the benefits and, what do we see from this? And really, it's, like Kate mentioned, this is a massive stormwater management project at its heart. Just by, managing the areas that were directly contributing contaminated runoff to the river, and capping and covering those, we can get benefits. And we've already seen through just creating that and creating that habitat, abundance of wildlife. Bald eagles, bald eagle nest has been in the area all of this really works with, as Kate mentioned, that 300 nest great blue heron rookery. And I won't get into all these details that I mentioned before. Really, a lot of this is working toward BUI removal. And this is, like Kate mentioned, from a year ago, so there's a lot of updates here on the BUI removal front. But we really think that these simple projects like this can really help that progress to eventual delisting. And sort of anecdotally on the bottom, from our monitoring that's been done as part of this is we've seen some fish species richness improve already in this. You can see the side scans sonar, thank you, Chip. On the right-hand side there is, you can see the corrugations of that habitat and just the signature of all the fish they're using and compared to the left side that doesn't have the habitat. This is one season after installation. Again, you put it in, they will find it, they will use it. And again, nice shot of largemouth bass, abundance increased by 80%. We're talking about economic viability. Sport fishing is huge, and largemouth bass is really one of the premier sport fish species, so very happy to see that. And again, as has been covered by most everyone else today, these ecological improvements are directly correlated to economic ones. So we really feel proud that we're able to help the city, help the community, help the watershed by providing the sort of projects that help the environment and help good economic outcomes. And just putting sort of a bow on it, some of the summary of numbers, as Kate mentioned, this has been 11, now 12 years of work, really. Over $31 million in total funding from various, most of it being GLRI. Over 3 miles of bank stabilization. Those fish shelves, they may have looked small in some of those things, but there's over 1.5 miles of that now. And 103 acres of riparian restoration, 36 total acres of wetland, and again, almost 150 acres of invasive management. Just really, really large numbers we've been able to accomplish with all of our partners. And I think really some of the takeaway messages from this is, as Kate mentioned, there's no roadmap, there's no blueprint for these things, but honestly that's not unique. A lot of other legacy industrial rivers and cities have these same issues, and really it seems overwhelming, it seems daunting, but really a lot of these small projects build on each other, and if you have that dedication and that long-term vision, as Kate mentioned, they have a significant impact over time. And they don't have to be complicated. We found that just simple steps of managing your runoff and creating habitat produce results. You don't need these large, engineered, massive, complicated projects that have beneficial results. And then maybe on the last end, we're certainly proud of all the accomplishments that we've made. We're certainly happy we're on our way to moving DUIs and delisting, but there's still challenges. There's still work to be done from a biological and scientific standpoint. Really, our macroinvertebrate populations, that base of the food chain, still needs work, and a lot of those are just from other watershed stressors. So just because we sort of got our management actions complete, and that's a good reason to celebrate and be proud, there's still work to be done, and we can still make improvements. And I think that is it. So I appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you again to all of our project partners. Everyone at the city, state, federal, EPA. Any questions I have an answer on the projects, be happy to, or anything Kate has. But thank you.
We got a couple more speakers. The next woman we're going to bring up is no stranger to our work along the Black River here in Lorain or throughout the county as a whole. And I think when you take a look at all of our amazing volunteers that we have, all the work that we've accomplished over the 10, 15 years that we've been working on all of this, you think of Steph and Rob Costco, you think of Kate Golden, you also think of Lynn Higgis, who is our next speaker. Lynn has held a number of titles and has worked on a large number of these projects that we've spoken about today, has been instrumental in the success that we've seen throughout the county and some of the projects that AJ just mentioned. So I'd like to give a warm round of applause and welcome Lynn Higgis.
Okay, so my name is Lynn Higgis, and for the past 9 years, I have worked doing restoration projects, particularly in the area of invasive species. It has been good to see everybody full-faced today. That's a change of pace. Thank you for being here. So most of you know that we have an invasive species issue in Ohio, particularly up and down the Black River, particularly in Lorain County. Our favorite is Friday. And although I am a newcomer in the grand scheme of the BR, the Black River AOC, I have been probably geographically more places to work than virtually anybody else in the room. I've been from one end of the county to the other, from north to south, east to west. I say I, and that's a misnomer. It's not just me. Throughout the beginning of phase 1, which was the county's first invasive species project, through phase 3, it's been a team effort. There's been the BRCCC, which is the Black River Civilian Conservation Group. So a singular pronoun doesn't work. So from here on, we talk about we. So we've done 3 phases. Phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 of invasive species control. We've worked on over 120 acres, which I believe I just heard was 148 acres in total. We've worked on Phragmites. We've worked on purple loosestripe. We've worked on the dreaded Japanese knotweed, which, by the way, is the worst. And we've worked on narrow-leaf cattail. We've worked in really harsh conditions. It's been horrible heat. It's been excessive humidity. Flip side, I think the coldest day we worked, the wind chill was -20. We were putting in the live stakes, 15,000 of them and counting. We've worked with spiders, snakes, mosquitoes, my particular favorite, ticks, many, many, many ticks. And for one particular crew member, white-tailed deer. Yes, scared to death of it. We would drive into a site, a deer would pop up, and she would vault from the front of the truck to the back of the truck screaming the whole way. I don't think I can ever explain or express what I learned from the crew. Some became great friends, some not so much. Some would go on to college, some went on to full-time local positions, some didn't achieve it. I became a boss, a mentor, a mom, an advisor, and at time, you can ask Dawn, a force to be reckoned with. But what I really became was a better person. Today, we celebrate the end of 4 grants, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and the Fortune Ditch Willow Creek project. The end of that culminated in a much loved, much anticipated project on my end, which is this particular website. This is my dream for all of the GLRI projects, that we have the local folks tell a story through pictures, through words, through drone videos, through personal accounts of how these things came to be. This one in particular that we are focusing on is the Margaret Peak Nature Preserve. This was not only Fortune Ditch, which was part of the restoration project, but it was also Margaret Peak Nature Preserve. And before that was a smaller scale project called Willow Creek, which is in a separate location. As you can see, I actually have a love for spiders. That is an orb spider. This particular park is in Eaton Township. It was publicly owned. Well, it's owned by Eaton Township. They granted us permission to do the Fortune Ditch project. They granted us permission to live stake around their ponds. They granted us permission to get rid of invasive species within that site. And in turn, we tried to make it better. We tried to make it more. We tried to bring back some habitat. So you can scroll through the pictures on a virtual tour. If you are there in sight within, I'm hoping the next month or so, COVID has hit yet again. So we were delayed in getting our posts up. We will have posts, 4x4 posts, about 8 foot tall, probably 2 or 3 foot in the ground. Each one will have a QR code in the shape of Lorain County. You can hit the QR code with your phone, and up will pop the things that you are most likely to see in an area surrounding that QR code site. Or you can stay home. Okay, well, we'll stop here for a sec. So this is the Fortune Ditch Restoration Project from the air. So this is the original site. This had been, before it was a nature preserve, this was a sod farm. That became a bean field, so you can see this is where the bean field was. This is Fortune Ditch. Scroll, please. This is during construction. How we lucked out to be able to have the county auditor having aerial photos done during my particular time frame was wonderful. You can see the change in the stream channel. Wetlands, bean field is gone. And here we have fully vegetated wetlands. We have the stream channel. We have our control measures. We have where the old stream channel used to be, we have yet another wetlands. And this has become a prairie savanna pollinator garden. And then at the back, Peak is quite a deep park. These are, you can scroll through those if you want to, Rob. These are pictures of befores, what it looked like, very channelized. Shout out to Cold Water for all of this design work. And Chip for probably almost as much time out there as I was. As you can see, it wasn't very pretty. So, this type of a website and web app will allow virtually anyone, anywhere to visit Peak. It will allow you to kind of be with us as we went through the project. It will allow teachers to do a virtual tour with getting a little bit of verbiage, not horribly, not too much verbiage, just explanations. I am hoping that by the time I retire, about this long, that we have all of the AOCs in Ohio doing something like this. And that we spread the word that this would be a great idea. People who are homebound, people who are with schools, with COVID, with what could be the next COVID, that we can still kind of get out and see what's going on without having to crank people into buses to go. I want to thank everybody for your time. I want to thank everyone for your patience while we have worked through all of these projects. The ones I was involved in, the ones I've watched, the ones that have been phenomenal over the years to see come to fruition. And I hope everybody enjoys the bus trip in about 15 minutes. Thanks, Rob.
Our last two speakers have been with us again through a number of projects. We're going to bring up Don Romanchik first, who is the chair of our Black River AOC Advisory Committee, and he will transition and give the mic over to Board of Commissioners President Matt Lundy, who's also here with us today. So I'll turn it over to Don.
Thank you, Matt. Again, my name is Don Romanchik. I'm Lorain County Stormwater and Community Development Coordinator. What that means is that if you want to move dirt in Lorain County somehow, some way, I get involved. I enjoy it. I love it. The Black River is something that has been incredibly important to me for most of my life. I grew up and have lived within 3 miles of Lake Erie. Most people do know I'm not a Lorain County native. I'm not a city of Lorain native. but they sure made it feel like home. The Black River has become more iconic to me than the Cuyahoga in Cleveland or the Chagrin, which was the closest river to me where I grew up in Lorain, in Lake County. Chagrin is special. It's got a cold water habitat. We have cold water consultants, so we do okay. And from what you could see, we have made a real difference. And it's not been due to any one person, it's not been due to any one program, it's not been due to any one thing other than a love of place and a love of water. People of Lorain County, what we do is we make things, we build things, we produce. You've seen the results. Today is a chance to sit back and do something that I personally am terrible at, that most of us are personally terrible at in this room. And once in a while, Commissioner Lundy will remind me of this. Toot your own horn. Let people know what you do. Let them know why we do it. Let them know who we are and why we're here. So, Commissioner, I want to thank you for once in a while reminding us, although I do know you have the same problem we do. It's off to the next project, it's off to the next problem, it's off to the next damsel in distress, as it may be. But one thing I want to leave with you, and I'm going to go through a process. I won't have the pretty pictures, and I'll probably use some words that don't make a whole lot of sense, but that's the vocabulary that EPA gave me. That's the vocabulary I am tied to. And so with that, you heard a lot of talk about management action projects, the management action list. And Kate did a great job of going over what did that mean. The question is that I think we need to understand is how did we get there? Kate's list looked very small. Now granted, there was a big dollar amount listed with it, but we have, as a Black River AOC Advisory Council, a large number of people that come from private sector, public sector, nonprofit. We had major industries, small businesses, government officials, people who actually were working in all three sectors at one time. They would own their own business. They were with a nonprofit. And oh, by the way, they may have been an elected official on a city council or been somewhere else. So you had all of these ideas. And we had a lot of help. We had the state of Ohio through various agencies providing us with information and support. We had, the general public coming in, providing comment, giving us ideas. What we ended up doing was, for maybe 20 years, well, not 20 years, but a good 16, 17 years, everyone that was involved from the very beginning was trying to figure out, what do we do? How do we do it? We know we've got a problem, we need to make things better. And we don't know quite how. It wasn't until GLRI came along and provided a source of funding, in my personal opinion, and then the state of Ohio and US EPA came up with we're going to provide some guidance on how to actually begin to move things. We've been doing things and studying things, but we're not getting projects that are making a real difference. And so they came up with some guidance, and we reformed our group. We went from Black River RAP. Many of the people in this room probably remember the RAPs that were all across the Great Lakes. And we became advisory councils in areas of concern. We had to learn a whole new language. As we were going through that process, the Black River was designated as, I think the term was that we were in the 2018 bucket or 2019 bucket. Suddenly buckets came to be. And we were going to have all of this money. And all you had to do was identify the projects, create a management action list, and the money will come flowing, and you'll be able to improve your river, and life will be good. Okay. So we changed our group, we changed our name, we changed our rules a little bit. A little bit of gnashing of teeth, a little bit of misunderstanding, a little bit of what are we doing and why are we doing it. And then put together the list. Kate started with 3 projects, and and we ended up at 5. I think our initial list before we looked was about 16. And we had to try and figure out how to apply cost to projects. Well, most of these projects were ideas, concepts, dreams, aspirations. And then we as a group had to figure out a way to turn all of these unknowable, unthinkable, unfundable type of ideas and get them down. We had many a long discussion, many a long negotiation. I know I personally was probably sweating a little bit trying, because we had just undergone, I believe, a change in who's going to chair the meeting. And I was fortunate enough to be elected chair at that point in time and oversee one of the greatest periods, I think, for the GLRI program, one of the greatest periods for the Black River in its history. And I got to chair these meetings, so I was trying to figure out a way to keep everyone civil, keep everyone together, and keep everyone pulling in one way. I didn't do it, the river did it, the people's love for place did it, and that's what kept us together. And eventually we were able to go back and forth with all of our people over at the Great Lakes National Program Office to essentially negotiate a list. How does this work? And Ohio EPA providing guidance and giving us feedback on, there's no way in heck they're going to do that. You've got to cut back. I think our first initial ask, once we actually got serious about it, was $45 million? $55 million. And that's before inflation. So, but what we found was that we had an incredible team, incredible communities, and the list that we came up with, well, you've seen most of these, is the remediation system, fish shells, the restoration of the reclamation site, which for the longest time to me was known as the floodplain. I'm still getting used to that, behind the steel mill. The Fortune Ditch restoration, and the Willow Creek restoration, and then lastly, the French Creek fish toxicity study. So we were able to expand our list a little bit. We included French Creek in the study to figure out what's going on that little stretch of the creek. And we're able to get these activities done. And I can't tell you how hard it was to get them done, how much stress Kate was under, how much stress Lynn was under, how much stress the community was under in trying to get these things done. But we did, and we're well on our way to our goal of having the Black River be listed. It was a pain to get there. There were no blank checks. We learned that real early on. But there was no limit on the amount of technical assistance and support we could get everywhere we looked from the state and the feds. There are a lot of people I wish were able to be here today that walked us through a lot of hard times and just trying out how to get things done. And then we had these weird things keep happening to us. Sometimes it was, well, they awarded a grant at the worst possible time for the county because our grant was about hiring people and getting them into the field, and we needed lead time. And so we would get a grant, and then right away we're asking for, can we get an extension? Because the first year we can't do anything. We need this lead time to hire out. They always did. I learned the term no cost extension. Paperwork's much easier. The other thing, though, that we learned in narrowing down our list was some other terms. That NPDES will take care of that problem, or the TMDL is addressing that problem, so it's not a GLRI project issue. Stormwater will handle it. Kate's third head will handle it. And then also, while we were going through this process, our AOC changed, and this was one of the most difficult things for our group. From the very beginning, the entire Black River was the AOC. Over time, we began to recognize that the east branch of the Black River and the west branch of the Black River Were they contributing to the issues of the main stem? Absolutely. Will they continue to? Absolutely. Are they a part of the long-term solution to maintain what we're gaining? Absolutely. But those stretches of the river are no different than any other typical river you would find in Ohio. That was a hard concept for us to learn because it felt like we were disconnecting many of the people who care about this river from the project. And that was the hardest thing we had to overcome. But again, we were able to overcome it. And all of that work on these 7 little projects came off of a lot of other things that were done and that were mentioned with Kristen when she was with Malcolm Perney, with Corey Timko, a former utilities director. Myself, when I worked for the city of Lorain. We had come up with a Black River master plan that had identified many, many projects up and down the Black River. What would we like to see and how could we get it? That was almost the start of the management action list in reality. And it was a beautiful map too. We used it everywhere. And everywhere we went, we talked about who Lorain was and what we were going to be and what we aspired to. The Willow Creek restoration potential was actually something that the Black River, I think at that time we were still RAP, working with the health district, got some money from EPA, Ohio EPA, to identify the most troubled subwatershed outside of the main stem in French Creek. And identified the same thing like we did on the Black River with the master plan, potential projects, trying to get them shovel ready. We also did the EPA area-wide assessment grant that the county applied for, working with the city to identify. In this case, it was different. We went from ecological restoration, economic development, building off of that, transforming brownfields into productive spaces, and that work is continuing. And then, we've done the assessments. We've studied things in the water, out of the water, in the air. But the one thing I can tell you that probably the Black River Advisory Committee is known for is if you want to get a DUI delisted, prove it. Where's your data? We're not going to just say, oh, well, we've been working on this for 20 years, we did a project, it should work, go ahead and delist it, we've solved the problem. I can tell you, everyone on that committee is going to say, prove it, show us the data, what are the numbers, and if the bar moves, tell us why the bar moves. There are certain things where you can only get to a certain level, and if that's the case, we'll accept it, but you got to prove it to us. This advisory committee has been outstanding. And what you got to see with Lynn, well, she's been here a long time and doing the work of supporting the delisting is a little glimpse into the future of where I see our advisory committee going and what our obligations are to the funds that we accepted. We're going to have to continue to do the work. And that work is through setting up to educate people to understand what has been done and what we can do to maintain what we have. It's to identify projects in the future. Lorain County is right now working on a funding for a project of a 60-acre restoration, floodplain enhancement, wetland enhancement creation program within that Willow Creek watershed that would be just upstream from Fortune Creek. Building off of what we've already done, continuing to make improvements, continuing to reinvest in what we know is right. And by doing that, and you'll hear a little bit of this, I think, from Commissioner Lundy, and you heard it a little bit earlier from Director Korleski, is if you do it correctly, if you do restoration, if you bring things back, you can achieve traditional economic development. You can create jobs, you can create investment, you can create wealth. And not only can you will create wealth. You will create investment, you will create jobs. They might not be what we're used to, but it will be there and it is no less real. We have to continue to remake ourselves, to reinvent ourselves. And also, I want to point out the city of Lorain is continuing with an H2 Ohio project of their own, outside of the Black River watershed, but protecting the Black River with Martin's Run and their wetland and stream project, which is right across the street from Carvana. And they are, Carvana, through their stormwater protection, are actually, from what we can see on their as-bills and the data they submitted, are producing less runoff at a slower rate than the old apple orchard replaced. Not that I'm in favor of replacing apple orchards, but there's a way to engineer things and do things to prevent things from getting worse because of development. And then what is going on across the street is going to create a green space that is going to be unbelievable and continue to reduce the flooding on Martin's Run, which is the scourge of the city of Lorain. It shuts down our roads.
Not anymore.
But God willing. So, what the other thing I want to kind of leave with you is you've heard a lot about the city of Lorain. You've heard a fair amount about the county and some of the bigger partners with the state and the feds. But I do want to leave you with this. What goes on in the city of Avon, Sheffield Village, are in our watershed. The city of Elyria, Cascade Park, there's a lot of beauty, there's a lot of Black River there, and then throughout all of the townships. What we see going on in Maumee, with the concerns about phosphorus and looking at agriculture, we may say that, oh, that's the Maumee River, oh, that's the Western Basin. Lorain County, we produce things. We produce crops. We produce wealth in a variety of ways. We need to make sure we're protecting our Black River at the headwaters all the way down to the bottom. We need to protect those edges. And we need to remember that and to work with, not against, our agricultural community, our townships, and then also our developers, and make sure that they understand what they're doing and why they're being asked to do things like stormwater detention, water quality volumes. It's not just we like engineers and think it's really cool to speak geeky. So with that, I hope that you take away that we've done a lot of great things, and we can see not only that the water is better, but how it has left the water and come onto land and made Lorain better and Lorain County better. But that the work is not done. The people that are a part of the committee are not done. And at some point in time, there will be people to replace myself and others to carry on the work and do a better job than I could ever hope to do myself. And with that, Commissioner Lundy. Commissioner Lundy's been here since Management Actions have started as a commissioner, and he has been a great supporter of what we have been doing in the Black River watershed, and has been one of the primary cheerleaders for not only protecting the Black River, but taking advantage of it as a resource as well as our lakefront. So with that, Commissioner Lundy.
Thank you, Don. I got to tell you, we have an amazing team in community development and all the endless efforts and work that you do. It's showing great progress. I also want to thank the Black River Advisory Committee, the Lake Erie Commission, Great Lakes Restoration, US EPA, Ohio EPA. It's been awesome working with our Ohio EPA on a lot of projects recently. So you guys are doing amazing work for us. I think it's only appropriate that we have this here in Lorain today, because we think of Lorain as the international city, but Lorain is a Renaissance city. And if you're here on the weekends during the summer, you're going to find about 7,000 to 10,000 people down in the Black River for Rocking on the River. And this hotel is another example of the Renaissance that's taking place, but I think we need to remember that the cleanup that is taking place on the Black River is a big part of that Renaissance. And you're all making the Renaissance in this community possible. I want to thank the state and federal leaders. We can do a lot of late work, but if we don't have their support to get it done, it's just not going to happen. And I want to thank you for what you have to do. And as somebody who works in government, we all know filling out all that paperwork is just no fun. So thank you for your patience in getting all that done. You know, when you live here in this area, you realize the tributaries, that everything leads to the lake, right? What's the joke? Water doesn't walk, it runs, right? So we know that water always ends up in our lake. And with that said, you know, there are people who come visit here and they may look out there and say, oh, that's Lake Erie. In Lorain County, we call it our lake. We don't refer to it as Lake Erie. It's like part of our family, an extension of the family. And we have been very proud to host fishing tournaments here. You know, Cabela's was here a couple years ago. And I have to admit, I did some fishing as a kid with my grandfather to take us fishing, but haven't done any lately. But it was so exciting talking to these fishing teams. And they were just thrilled by what we have here in the city of Lorain. And I can't say enough about these folks coming from all around the country. And they're like, wow, we didn't know this was here. This is great. So with that said, I think it's important that we have to realize that our lake is a big economic driver. It's a huge economic driver. And this cleanup is critical to our success in that area. For those of you who are visiting today, you may not know that here in Lorain County, the 4 lakefront communities have actually come together and have formed lakefront Lorain County. It's the communities of Vermilion, Sheffield Lake, Lorain, and Avon Lake. And we also came together to secure a grant through NOACA so that we could put together a vision and a plan for the lakefront. That was like an $85,000 grant, Transportation for Livable Communities grant. And what we want to be able to do is to showcase our lakefront. A vision is, you know, very important to have. Sometimes people say in government, you know, we've got these grandiose ideas. Well, let's face it, you have to have a vision, and then you have to develop a plan. But making that possible is definitely having this river clean. But, you know, we imagine for the future, restaurants along our lakefront, you know, a nature center, more marinas. We also are battling Mother Nature. A lot of erosion that's taking place in this area. And the county commissioners recently stepped up and provided the communities each with funding so that they can build a foundation to start looking at putting in place a special improvement district so that we can package together all those lakefront properties that have serious erosion problems. This ends up on someone's property tax bill for like a 20-year period so they can spread it out over that period of time. Makes it more affordable to address that issue. As we look towards the future, though, we do have some challenges ahead. Not too far from here over in Avon Lake, we have a power plant that is on the lakefront. And this is a real opportunity for the county. But that is one where everybody's going to have to step up and work together. There's a lot of remediation to take place there, a lot of work to be done. But I've had the chance to be in the room with some developers who are coming up with concepts and ideas for that location. And I can tell you if we can all work together, it'll certainly be a great lakefront opportunity for our children and our families, and quite frankly, for generations to come. As Don pointed out, it's probably been expressed here today, I think, you know, government, we're told to run government like a business. So, you know, one of the key things in business is your return on your investment. And for every dollar that we're putting into these lakefront initiatives, we're seeing over $3, you know, economic impact. So that's a very wise return on our investment and well investment of our taxpayer dollars. And we're going to continue to focus on that. Every day I see these stories about what's going on in the West, what's going on in the South. Everybody wants our water. They want our water. Now, I'm just going to say publicly, they can move here if they want our water, but they're not getting our water, okay? So, you know, we must continue to take care of our lake. We must continue to nurture it, but the best way to do that is by working together. And I want to thank all of you for your efforts and all the success stories that we've been writing, doing it jointly along the way. Thank you very much.
As Don mentioned, the bus tour of the reclamation site will be leaving shortly, so if you do plan on experiencing that, and seeing these projects in real life in front of your eyes, please join us downstairs after we celebrate with the cupcake. The bus will be leaving shortly. It's about a 2-hour tour, and a lot of these projects that you've seen up on the screen will be highlighted, and everybody here is welcome to join, so please consider doing that. We'll be brought back to this hotel around 4:30. And just something that Don mentioned really quick as we end this, I think again is important to highlight is, giving ourselves a pat on the back. I mean, so much time, money, energy has been spent, weekends gone away from our family, long nights, working on these projects, and it is a huge accomplishment. And to have something like this here to celebrate that is a huge deal. To have the last 2 EPA administrators visit our city over the last 4 or 5 years, to see these projects come to life. Administrator Andrew Wheeler under President Trump, Administrator Michael Reagan under President Biden, and to have the President here to announce that $1 billion in GLRI funding is a huge testament to what we are doing here in Lorain. The development that's happening on the river, the health of the river, returning, all of that culminating because of the hard work of people in this room and across this county. So again, thank you all for joining us today. Grab a cupcake, head downstairs, and we'll get you on the bus to see some awesome projects. Thank you guys.